Hey everyone, it's Jonathan, and welcome back to the Disney Movie Marathon. Even though we just had 2 Halloween episodes, I decided to keep the creepy coming. Last year I did an episode for my other podcast, Every Version Ever. My friend Jenna joined me last October. You may know Jenna better online as Phantomwise. And for our Halloween episode for Every Version Ever, we talked about the allegedly terrifying Disney film from 1983, Return to Oz. Next month we'll get back into the official Disney canon, but while it's still seasonally appropriate, I thought I would share this episode of Every Version Ever. Return to Oz is Disney's pseudo-sequel to the original MGM film, but somehow, unlike the other sequels to The Wizard of Oz, and yes, there are a lot of movies that claim to be sequels to the original, this one actually manages to be its own thing, and it's a lot better than the other sequels I've seen. And I've seen a lot. That's what happens when you do a podcast called Every Version Ever. Now, technically, I still would have preferred to see an original Wizard of Oz story set in this universe before we got this sequel, but that aside, this movie manages to be entertaining and weirdly fun in a dark, semi-creepy 80s fantasy kind of way. So, I'm assuming that you saw this as a kid. You talked like this was a favorite.
Actually, well, I saw it probably as a preteen.
Okay. Well, that's
And
still a kid.
yeah, I guess I don't remember how though. I guess somehow I came across the VHS tape. Um as a kid,
Library, maybe. That's how I
maybe,
saw movies.
yeah, I don't know. Well, I was really into the MGM movie as a kid. Um
Mm-hmm.
so maybe I saw this movie and I thought, "Hey, Oz." I'm not sure. But all I know is like I watched it and I fell in love with it. And it's still one of my favorite movies.
I think I hear Toto in the background.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It's themed. I did actually used to have a Karen Terrier like Toto, but anyway,
Oh.
yeah, he passed. But oh gosh, I hope she doesn't bark. Okay. Uh, it's a part Chihuahua. She's a barker. All right.
Uh, yes.
Anyway, um, right. So I fell in love with this movie, and I watched it lots of times. And when I had like a little baby cousin who was super into Wizard of Oz, like the MGM movie, and she would
Mm-hmm.
watch it over and over. And eventually, I just got really tired of seeing it over and over. And I said, "Hey, you want to see what happens next?" And she and she went, "Okay." So I showed her Return to Oz, and she was very quiet. She wasn't, you know, I was expecting some reaction, but she just kind of like stared blankly. And I was like, okay, she's not screaming though. Um, and then, and then later, well, I had asked what she thought. She said it was okay. And then later, her mom came up to me and she said, "What does she mean when she says she wants to watch the scary Oz?" What did you show her? And yeah, but it turned out good. I explained what it was. I actually gave them my VHS tape copy, and they were thankful to have some variety instead of watching the MGM movie over and over. But I did scare them.
That's a better reaction than I expected.
Yeah, it is. I love this movie, but it is kind of the scary Oz.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'd always heard about it is I'd never seen it before I watched it for this podcast. I'd always
Really?
heard that it was terrifying. And I guess I'd expected it to be cheesy and maybe not very good. It was actually better than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you liked it. Or
I
not,
think
that it was better than you thought, at least.
I did enjoy it. I don't know how often I would rewatch it, but I probably would watch it again if maybe in the future sometime.
I highly recommend it because you notice new things on rewatching.
Yeah. Well, to me, the more I want to rewatch something, I feel like that's hallmark of a good movie.
Mm.
And I feel like I would watch this one again.
I'm glad to hear that more people to the cult of Return to Oz. It's a cult classic for a reason, is what I say.
I can see why it really had like a labyrinth or dark crystal type feel to it.
Yeah. And I don't know if I think some of the same people worked on it. I'm not 100% sure.
Brian Henson was worked on it. He
Okay.
actually voiced Jack the pumpkin guy.
Oh, there you go. See, I'm just a casual fan to be honest. But yeah, and I think I watched like some behind the scenes stuff where one of them said they worked on Dark Crystal and like compared some of the puppetry to that. So
Okay.
yeah, uh, and oh my gosh, the puppetry is amazing. The sets
Yeah.
are amazing. The costumes are amazing.
And the stop motion with the Gnome King
Yes,
and all of his, I don't know if they were supposed to be other gnomes, but all the rock effects looked really good.
yeah, I think those are gnomes. Yeah, I know the stop motion's done by Will Vinton Studios. They used to do all the like claymation ads in the 80s. Like
Hmm.
um the raisins. Do you know what I'm talking about? I heard
The
it on the
California
grapevine.
raisins.
Yes, yes, they did the
Yeah.
California raisins commercials.
Okay. I had a little toy of those, one of those when I was little. I think it was playing a trumpet or something.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, and they also worked on like Moonwalker. So I mean they did a lot of prolific stuff. Oh, they also did like here's some Alice for you. They did the claymation in Alice Adventures in Wonderland as well after this.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah, they were pretty prolific back then. And I think this is like the best project they ever did ever. The integration with the live action is really really good.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever read the books?
Yes. That was going to be my question to you is have you read the two books that this is based on?
I have. Actually, Land of Oz is probably my favorite of the series,
Okay.
but I haven't read it in a while. Uh,
Yeah, me neither.
yeah.
I have read it enough that I recognized things from each, but I haven't read it recently enough that I could tell you how accurate they were. I could tell some things, like some things were either way off or they combined things. So
Mm.
I could tell that much in some areas, but for the most part I don't know exactly how accurate it was.
And Ozian, or as I forget the fan term, might disagree with me, but I think that it's really pretty accurate for combining the two stories. And I think they combine them like so well too.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, I kind of think it's better with the two of them combined than them separately.
I think the biggest difference is the fact that I think the Marvelous Land of Oz that's the one with Tip, right?
Yes.
So that's the biggest difference is you're following not Dorothy, a brand new character named Tip, and then by the end of the book you find out that this little boy is actually secretly Ozma, the Queen of Oz. Like she had been magically transformed into a little boy when she was a baby
Mhm.
and then grew up thinking she was just this poor servant peasant boy and then finding out no actually you're the Queen of Oz and then he was transformed back to Ozma I think at the end.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest difference because there's no Tip and Ozma is not transformed. She's just hidden in a mirror, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what's going on. I thought she was a
Yeah.
ghost at first.
No, she's trapped in the. Well, I think originally she was free to walk around because apparently she made Jack Pumpkinhead. But yeah,
Oh yeah, okay.
then I guess she pissed off Mombi and she put her in the mirror. Um,
Oh yeah, that's another big difference. The Mombi character is
mhm.
two different characters,
It's combined,
like
yeah.
combined, because there was a queen of a different land, I believe, who changed heads, and I don't think it was even supposed to be a scary thing in the book. I don't remember it being scary. It was
To be
just she
honest,
wanted
the book
different
has a lot
heads.
of the book has a lot of like dark imagery stuff, and it just totally
Mm-hmm.
acts like there's nothing scary about it.
Yeah,
Like
that's true.
like in the first book, for instance, and I've reread the first book quite a bit, so I'm like the part where the flying monkeys are attacking them, and the Tin
Mm-hmm.
Woodsman chops off like their heads. Dorothy has no reaction. This is totally normal for a little girl to witness decapitation of monkeys, so it's there's a lot of dark stuff in Oz that Baum just kind of like it's okay. Um,
I don't remember the monkeys being decapitated, but I do remember that her friends were ripped limb from limb,
oh
except for the
yeah,
lion, who was
yeah.
put in a cage.
And that's pretty dark too. I mean, like, yes, they're not alive, so they were fine, but that is pretty dark as well. Or
Uh-huh.
or even the Tin Woodsman, like his origin story of being
Yes.
chopped off at the limb. Like, it's actually a pretty dark children's book. I
Yeah.
as an Alice expert, I always find it weird when people insist Alice is really dark, and I'm like, but have you read Oz? And I don't
Yeah,
see you
that is
saying
true.
anything about that one. People don't read the original Oz books as much.
No, I think they mostly stick to the MGM version, which is very different than the books. Like there's a lot that is the same, but there is a lot that is way different.
I could ramble on about the MGM movie because the MGM movie is what I originally made me fall in love with the story, but then I became a nerd and started reading the books, and then I got really annoyed at what they did in the MGM movie. So
I think I was
yeah,
the same way.
yeah,
I've kind of gotten over it, but when I was a kid, I remember I loved the MGM version,
mm,
and then I got to the point where I was like, if a movie doesn't follow the books exactly, then it's a terrible movie. And then I went through a phase where I hated the MGM version because it was so different than the books. And now I'm kind of over that, and I'm okay with them changing some things. But I would like a really book accurate version. I think that somebody could do a really good job with it. It'd be weird, but I still want it.
the problem I think I still have with the MGM movie because I did go through that myself. I have re-accepted it because I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm kind of like they didn't get the color symbolism. They screwed up the color symbolism in the MGM movie. Like they didn't get it. They really like kind of whitewashed it. Like one of the things that annoys me is that Dorothy accidentally throws the water on the witch because she's just trying to like put out the fire, right? Whereas in the book,
Hmm.
she's like, screw you. Like she does it on purpose. And I kind of hate that they take away that spark in her character just for her to be like a nice girl. Anyway, but the main problem I still have with the NGM movie is that everyone's so in love with it that they absolutely cannot, like entertain different interpretations or adaptations of the
Yeah.
story. And
Hmm.
and then when you do get a movie that tries to be more accurate to the books, like Return to Oz,
Hmm.
people think it's totally like against what Oz is, and they don't get it, and that really annoys me.
Yeah. Another thing that I think I've talked about this in previous Oz related podcasts is that nobody wants to touch the MGM version. They refuse to try and remake it. And it does, it's not even like they would be remaking the MGM version. Just do another adaptation of the original book. They always want to start with a sequel, which that's one reason that I kind of thought that Return to Oz was not going to be that great. It's because it was another movie that didn't have an original movie. It basically was a sequel to either the MGM version or a movie that doesn't exist.
Mm.
And this one is kind of somewhere in between because it's sort of a sequel to the MGM version because there are things that are in this version that are only in the MGM version, especially like the ruby slippers. That is the MGM version, and I'm actually surprised that they have that in there because
Oh, they paid a
I
lot of
think there's like a
money.
legal thing. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
they
was
paid
wondering about
MGM
that.
a lot of money, like an insane amount of money to use the ruby slippers. And I was
Okay.
like, yeah, personally, I would have preferred silver, but
Yeah,
whatever.
that's more book accurate, but that was one thing that I was. kind of confused on like, is this supposed to be a sequel to the MGM version? But then it had like the book accurate Tin Man origin story because she was telling people about it. I was like, well, that's not from the MGM version.
Yeah. It's kind of like I feel like it's kind of like it's meant to be a sequel to the original book, but they had to put MGM stuff in it in order to like greenlight it being made.
Mm,
I mean, as an executive, would you, and if somebody came to you with like this fan project, like I want to make, based on the books, and they're like, who would watch that? Like,
that does seem to be
yeah,
an issue.
yeah. But it's also kind of I don't know, it's kind of a shame as well because I would love to see like an adaptation of the first book done in this style with Fairuza
Yeah,
Balk. She makes a really good Dorothy, I think. Um,
she did.
yeah, I like her better than Judy Garland, but that part of that's because she's much younger, so she.
I was just gonna say, in some ways I agree. In other ways, I really like Judy Garland, but the main reason is she's actually the right age. Judy Garland was, even though she's great, she was way too old for the role.
I mean, to be fair to Judy, like the only child actress that was probably age appropriate for that role was Shirley Temple, and that just wasn't going to happen.
I would have loved to see a Shirley Temple Wizard of Oz. That would be so interesting.
Me too. Though at the same time, like, would it be worse? Like, would there be tap dancing and? Uh, but then
I don't
again,
know.
Ray Bolger and Shirley Temple, and Ray Bolger is a really good dancer. That would have been interesting. Anyway, this
We need like some kind of a machine to hop to a different dimension where this exists and we can watch it.
yes, because because she was really close to being Wizard of Oz. Did you hear about that?
I think so. I don't remember exactly how it went, but I remember she was in the running for a while.
Yeah, they were like supposed to trade her with like two other actors, but one of them died,
Oh.
so they wouldn't go through with it. And
Huh.
she was really disappointed. It was like like her favorite story.
Huh.
But anyway, sorry, we're off track. So, child stars, I do get that it's really hard to find good child stars.
Mm-hmm.
Marissa Balk, like she's young, but she's so good at acting. Like she when you think about it, she has almost no other humans for most of the movie to interact with.
Yeah, that's true.
That is so hard to do, especially for young kids. I've seen a lot of Alice's where they have young Alice's like interact with nothing, and they put something
Mm-hmm.
in post, and a lot of them you could just kind of tell like she can't really pretend there's something there. She's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
reciting lines. Like I think
Yeah.
the Angia, like the 1985. Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna say it right. Angia Alice is like that. Anyway, so Feruza did a great job, and
Yeah.
she did all of the stunts too, all of them.
Hmm. I also thought that the girl who played Ozma was good too, but she wasn't in there as much, but I thought she was good.
What's interesting about her, did you know that they dubbed her voice?
Uh-uh.
She's actually British. The film was filmed in England, and when they thought it over, like she originally did her lines. When they thought it over, they thought it was kind of strange in the beginning that a British little girl would be in Kansas, so they dubbed over her lines.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. I guess that we're talking about like portrayals now. What did you think of the guy who played the Gnome King and the Doctor?
He was good.
I really liked him. I guess in general, I do really like how this film um, it kind of takes inspiration from the MGM movie in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Where it's real life, and these real life things inspire things that Dorothy sees. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so when he plays the Doctor, I think he does a really good job of like doing this balance of sounding understanding, but there's also
Mm-hmm.
something kind of off about how he talks, if that makes sense. Like he's analyzing you, and
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't have like the best intentions at the same time. And I don't know, I just think it's a really it's a really good balance, and it works really well when he's the Gnome King as well, because
Mm-hmm.
they trust him at first that there's no trick going
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
and he's really got this alternative motive, so it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I actually didn't realize that he was both the Doctor and the Gnome King until towards the end when I looked something else up on Wikipedia and then I saw that he was both characters. I was like, oh, wow, really? I noticed the nurse. Like, the nurse right away, like when she's in that hall and she opens the one door and the one head, I was like, that's got to be the same as the nurse. And it was.
Yeah, she's got those
But
crazy sleeves on her dress in the beginning.
yeah,
Yeah, and then I don't know if you noticed, but the head wheeler was the guy who had the gurney.
I didn't notice, but that was another thing that I saw on Wikipedia after the fact. I was like, oh, yeah, I can see that now.
I guess just in general, the beginning is really interesting. I
Hmm.
like it, but I understand a lot of people think it's like too creepy.
Yeah, I can see why they would think that, but it made for an interesting version.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it works really well. And also, I think it works really well with like the time period as well, where electricity
Hmm.
was becoming more in use. They didn't
Yeah,
understand mental health as well. It was
yeah,
very experimental. Kind of like this whole thing about like the century of progress too. And then also even Aunt Em and Uncle Henry were pretty interesting. I have like a book that is those books that are adaptations of films.
like a novelization.
Yeah, novelization, that's the word. Thank you. Um, I have a novelization of this film, and it's pretty, you think it would just be standard, but it's actually based off a fuller script than the movie.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
it's really interesting. Like you get Aunt M's point of view, which is kind of like she's just really, really tired. Uncle Henry is like he hurt his leg and now he's like kind of depressed, and even though it's better, he hasn't been working. You know, you just
Yeah, I was kind of confused as to what happened with his leg because they mentioned it and they never really explained it.
yeah, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like a depression thing, I think, because there's no real like other explanation. His leg
Okay.
gets better, but he's not doing anything. There's this deleted scene where he's sitting on the unmade end of the house, and there's like a star he gets from his cigarette packs. And when he finishes, he like tacks it on a post, and you just see like all these stars. So he's been just been smoking for who knows how long.
Huh.
So it's you get this sense of like hopelessness from them, and that's why they're desperate
Yeah.
enough to try the electroshock therapy.
Yeah, I don't know if confused is the right word. It just felt weird to have Aunt Em and Uncle Henry be that way. They didn't feel like Aunt Em and Uncle Henry, and at times Aunt Em almost felt mean, even though I guess I can understand like if she's desperate to get some answers as to why Dorothy isn't sleeping. But she came off as kind of mean at the beginning.
Yeah, there's also another deleted scene where she's not mean. You kind of get more of a sense that she's just at her wit's end.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this deleted scene at the very beginning when she notices Dorothy isn't sleeping, and she offers to do this like relaxing ritual to try to help her sleep by pretending to paint her face like a doll. So you can see in this scene that it was meant to be that she does care about Dorothy and she just doesn't know what to do, but
Mm-hmm.
they cut it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of love how like the other things, like you see a moose head like outside the doctor's office, and that's the Gump. His machine is like
I don't
TikTok.
think I even noticed that. I
Oh,
wondered about the machine. I kind of thought that the machine was going to end up being TikTok,
uh,
but then TikTok looked totally different when you actually get to Oz.
well, yeah, but I mean, it's still like a machine with the face.
Yeah. It was, I guess it was just an allusion to it,
Yeah.
but when it first showed up I was like, is that going to be TikTok when she gets there?
That would be crazy. And then, of course, the pumpkin, which is given to her by Ozma. who is Jack's
Yes.
mom. I think another thing, maybe this is me stretching, but when you first see Ozma as a patient, I assume she's a patient. She's in kind of like this stained glass window that like
Hmm.
that's oval shaped and clear in the middle, and it kind of makes me think of like a mirror shape. So I kind of wonder if that was on purpose as well.
I wasn't really sure how all of this stuff was supposed to work. Like, it's one of those things with a lot of Oz adaptations. Like, is Oz a dream or is it some other dimension? Like, I didn't know if Ozma had come through to the Earth dimension from the Oz dimension. It's one of those things where I feel like that with a lot of these, especially like the MGM version, because it's like, did it actually happen or was it all a dream? Or maybe it was both. I don't know.
That is the kind of weird thing about Return to Oz because it kind of chooses to do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end you get Ozma in the mirror, and she says she could
Mm-hmm.
come back at any time. And so it's
Yeah.
that is kind of weird. I almost kind of maybe prefer, it is more book accurate, but maybe it would have been better if she didn't see her in the mirror, and it was kind of left up to question whether it really happened or not. Um,
I thought it would be even more dark. Is Dorothy going crazy?
but this time she could sleep, so it's okay. You know, um, because the other weird thing is like Ozma being a patient, right? Like maybe you could make the argument that as a patient, she's just a figment of Dorothy's imagination. Like maybe she's not really there.
Well, maybe mirrors in Oz are like portals to Earth. Maybe
Maybe.
by with Mombi trapping her in the mirror, she was actually sending her to Earth. Who knows?
Oh, maybe. I mean, it's not too far out of line. In general, actually, mirrors are really fascinating in Return to Oz. You got Ozma being stuck in a mirror. You got the throne room is made of mirrors, and it's gorgeous. Um,
Mm, yeah.
then you got Ozma in the mirror at the end, and then Dorothy pulls Ozma from the mirror, and also, I don't know if you noticed, but in Dorothy's room at the hospital, there's a vanity without a mirror. Like it has the part where the mirror is supposed to be, but there's no reflective surface.
I didn't notice, but now that you say that, I think I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah,
But I didn't think anything of it.
I'm not sure if that's supposed to symbolize something, but I feel like that's on purpose, especially with all the other mirror imagery. The thing is
Mm,
is that I'm at a loss to say, why there's so many mirrors. I mean,
mm-hmm.
as an Alice fan, I love it, but I don't know if what they're trying to say. I feel like there's something about Ozma being a reflection of Dorothy. So instead of, like Ozma's still like a dual character, like in the book, but instead of being a boy, she's also kind of Dorothy. But I don't get what exactly they're trying to do,
Yeah.
especially since, like Ozma tells Dorothy she could visit. So if they
Mm-hmm.
are reflections of each other, isn't that kind of weird? Like, come play with yourself and
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, in the books, Dorothy visits and they do stuff together anyway, so
yeah, but I mean
I
in the
mean,
in the book they're not reflections of each other.
yeah.
So the
I don't
movie,
know what they were going for.
yeah, the Return to Oz did make this kind of weird reflection thing. Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what that meant. I love it because mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
I especially love Dorothy pulling her from a mirror, but I just don't get it.
Yeah, maybe they just thought it was cool.
Maybe. Actually, I need to finish. I never did finish that novelization, like reading it. I need to do that. Um,
Maybe there you will find answers.
yeah, maybe I should have done that before this. Oops. Um, I don't know where it is though.
We already talked somewhat about the doctor, but I thought it was, I don't know if funny is the right word, but when Uncle Henry finds the ad for this electroshock therapy, it says that it's electric healing. And that kind of cracked me up.
I think ads at that time did actually say that kind of stuff.
I
Yeah.
would not be surprised. I just like how they phrased things back then. And even if they didn't, this feels like some way that some quack doctor would phrase some sort of pseudoscience.
Yeah, yeah.
And then another character we haven't talked about yet is Belina the chicken.
Oh,
I
right.
remember I remember her from the book, but I don't remember her. Was she actually Dorothy's chicken in the book? Because I thought
No,
she
I don't
just
think
found
so.
her.
I think in the book, and it's the third book, Dorothy's on a ship with Uncle Henry,
Yeah.
and I think she just ends up like in a chicken box or something like. So I think it's a random chicken.
Okay. Yeah, because in this version, the chicken is one of many chickens on the farm, and it's one specifically pointed out because she's not laying eggs anymore, and Dorothy's worried that she's going to be
Eaten.
fried chicken at some
Yeah.
point. But then later, after they escape from the hospital, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but they fell down a ravine into the river, and then somehow they're in the ocean, and then she finds Belina
Lena. Yeah.
again. I don't know how Belina got there, but she's in the river slash ocean slash pond when they eventually get to Oz.
This
So
is
yeah,
kind of
I don't know how that works.
yeah, this is kind of like the some one of the things in this movie that doesn't make sense. Why even why not just have it be a random chicken? That would make more sense than Belina being her,
Yeah,
being her chicken.
yeah, it would. Oh well.
Oh well. The puppet for Belina is pretty well done.
Yeah, it was. It actually mostly looked real.
Yeah, and
Mostly.
and then they would switch it out for a chicken. But
Uh huh.
for the most part, I don't really think you could tell. But then again, I watched it with a friend who hated Felina and just it was like I don't know, like thought the puppet was creepy. So maybe your mileage may vary. Some people might notice.
I think some people just have a thing about puppets.
True. Yeah. I guess you can kind of get an uncanny valley effect when it's like a real animal.
Yeah. I mean, there was a little bit of that, but I thought she was still really well done, especially if you compare her to the Gump. The Gump wasn't as good.
But the Gump was like really advanced technology for the time, actually. I think it was like
I
all,
can believe it.
yeah, it's like all cables.
Uh,
He had like a whole team of puppeteers, like off
hmm.
camera. So he's really impressive, but yeah, he's not as good as like TikTok or Jack.
I think the part of the problem is probably the fact that he has what should be a much more expressive mouth, whereas Belina only has a beak, and TikTok and Jack, I don't think they have mouths to move at all.
Yeah,
So
TikTok just
I
has
think,
like the mustache that moves up and down.
yeah, and it is much harder to pass something like that off as opposed to just a beak or a mustache or a non-moving mouth. Like his mouth, you could tell it wasn't real because it wasn't moving absolutely perfectly.
Mm.
It moved well enough, especially for kids watching. I'm sure they're not going to notice. I'm an adult who picks these things apart. But compared to Belina, I thought it wasn't quite as good.
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, the Gump in general is kind of a character.
Yeah, that's true. It's even in the book, he was just kind of like, "This is weird." And if anyone's listening who hasn't read the book, the Gump is basically a mounted head of a moose-like creature, a
Mm.
moose slash deer-like creature that has been strapped to, I think, two couches
Mm.
and put leaves on them as wings, and then all brought to life as one creature. It's
Yeah,
very strange.
can you imagine if you died and then you woke up like that?
That was another thing that they just kind of glossed over in the movie. He said that the last thing he remembers is hearing a really loud noise, and then he's now here.
Yeah. But it's, well, I mean, at some point, you just kind of have to accept what's happening to you, right? So maybe he's just kind of.
He accepted it real quick. He's like, okay, I guess I'm a weird couch beast now.
It's, well, I mean, it's either like accept it now or, like drop into the deadly desert, like being confused, right? So, but yeah, the Gunt's definitely he has a good few lines, but he's definitely not my favorite character in this movie.
Mm.
My favorite is TikTok, 100%. He's adorable.
I think he might be mine too. Which I wasn't expecting, because he didn't make that much of an impression on me in the book. But there's something about this movie version that was like really endearing.
Yeah, he's so cute, and the way his like mustache moves and his gem, like almost like gemstone eyes. And they're different colors. So the way this was done was the top, like the head was radio operated, and then inside was like an acrobat. So imagine the TikTok in the movie. The top twists off, right? Like at the waist.
Okay.
So the performer inside would be like bent over backwards. They would actually like walk backwards as well to do like the waddling effect.
Huh.
It's pretty incredible if you like look at footage of it.
Yeah, it doesn't really look like something that a person would fit into, but I suppose if you're some kind of a contortionist, you could squeeze yourself in.
That's pretty much what he did, and then they'd strap him in.
Huh.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Then Jack was just a typical like puppet, and then sometimes it'd be a human portraying him. You can kind of tell when it's a human.
Yeah.
But it's not too bad, and in a way, like the way the human walked was like really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like how Jack's head like expands and stretches to like kind of make expressions in a way. Because otherwise,
Yeah,
he's expressionist.
I did kind of notice something going on there.
So it's like he's not completely expressionless.
Uh-huh.
All the puppetry and the animation is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, even things like the Wheelers, I thought they were really well done.
Oh yes, yes. Can you imagine doing that? I can't even imagine.
My thought was, can you imagine being that? Like, how do they get dressed? They literally just have wheels for hands and feet. How do they dress themselves? Because they have on these elaborate costumes. It's one of those things where you just have to kind of accept it. The Oz magic or whatever.
Yeah, maybe they're just born that way. And then you start to wonder how they're born.
Part of their body.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true, because there weren't any girl Wheelers. They all looked basically the same.
Yeah, maybe you just like Wheelers just appear like fully formed in clothing,
Maybe they lay eggs, like eggs roll down their sleeves. Like that's how they lay eggs. They just kind of lift their arm up and some eggs fall out, and then a baby Wheeler hatches.
And their clothes grow with them.
Yeah.
I think that's the most scientific approach to this.
Yeah.
Oh, what did you think of how Mombi was portrayed?
I liked her. She wasn't exactly what I had in mind when I thought of Mombi, but I didn't. Mombi to me is just the witch in the books. So this was different because they combined two characters. I can't remember the other character's name though. She was either a princess or a queen. Princess
Lang. She had like a really long weird name.
Yeah.
This is like pretty much that character, but named Mombi with the responsibility of taking care of Ozma.
Yeah.
I mean, really, she's only really Mombi in name.
Well, was the princess evil in the book? Because I seem to remember she was just a character. Like, I don't remember her being evil. Maybe it's been a long time since I've read it, so maybe I'm misremembering.
It's been a long time since I read it too. I mean, I'm pretty sure she does take heads, which is kind of evil.
Oh, in the book, she like steals people's heads.
I
I didn't
think
remember
so.
that from the book.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a new dark twist that they made up for this movie.
No,
If
I
that's
don't.
what happened in the book, then yeah, she's evil. But I didn't remember that. But like I said, it's been a long time since I've read that specific book.
Yeah, I've actually only I think I is that Road to Oz? I've only read it like once. Wait, no, no, not Road to
I
Oz.
think
No.
that
What is
I
it?
think it's Ozma of Oz,
Ozma of Oz.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's Ozma of Oz. I've only read it once, like ever. So
I think I've only read it once too, and it was several years ago. I've read um, Marvel's Land of Oz more than that one, I think.
same. I don't know. I just like A Land of Oz more. I think I've read up to Patchwork Girl of Oz, and I stopped after that because Bomb gets kind of weird. Like,
I mean, he started out kind of weird.
yeah, but I mean, like, he forgets his own canon or alters it.
Oh,
It's
okay.
it just gets kind of confusing. At some point, you could kind of just tell he doesn't care anymore, and he's just doing this because it's the only thing people will buy.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So it's kind of I kind of like didn't get as interested like to read the later ones, but
Hmm.
and then I'm not even even if I did, I'm not going to read the rest of the 40. I don't count any of that.
Yeah, because at some point other people started taking over, and then Oz kind of went branching off in different directions.
Yeah, and some of it's complete nonsense. Like is I
Mm,
think there's a book about like airplanes in Oz, and it's like
really?
yeah, I think it came out the same year as the movie. So it's just like, it just gets really
Hmm.
dumb. And
Well, I mean, if they can make a TikTok, I suppose they could make an airplane too.
yeah, but I don't know. I'm just like, it's not like fantasy enough for me. Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, so I guess my point is I haven't read the later books as much. I've read the first two a lot. I don't know why. Well, I like the first. I like the first two, I guess.
I think I'm probably about the same because I've read the first one a lot. I've read the second one probably two or three times.
Mm,
The third one I know I've read, and after that I think I've read some, but I don't remember how many or how far I got.
mm. Because at some point you just get kind of like exhausted by it. There's so many characters.
Yeah, there are. It's like a new cast of. He always has to come up with like a motley crew of of different people to go on the different adventures together.
Yeah, but then then he has to like include them all later too. So then it just gets confusing. I think at some point there's like four little girls, including Dorothy and Ozma, and it's like, why so
Okay, you've
many?
you've read further than me. Then I don't
Yeah,
remember four little girls. I remember Dorothy and Ozma.
yeah. At some point, like two other little girls join. I think at separate
Huh.
times. It just it gets to be a lot. Like, calm down. I can't keep track. Oh, and Dorothy becomes a princess, which is cute.
I
Um,
vaguely remember that happening.
and then when Auntie Em and Uncle Henry come to live there, I'm like,
I do vaguely remember that too. Which book did that happen in?
I don't
Was that
remember,
in
but
Ozma or was that later?
it's later. I remember like not
Okay.
being impressed with that book though. Like it's basically like them touring Oz and being like, this is weird, and but like not really in a fun way. It's just really more an excuse. Like I feel like it's more of an excuse for Baum not to have to make up new crazy ways for Dorothy to end up in Oz.
Probably.
Yeah, she lives here now, and so do her aunt and uncle. But you're not gonna really see them again because they're just gonna like be off and doing their own thing. But they're here, and
Well, really, if you were given a choice between living in the fantastical land of Oz or the boring farmland in Kansas, I think I probably would pick Oz.
I don't know. Oz is like really utopian for me. I don't know if I could stand being there for that.
I mean, it's always getting like attacked by witches and stuff, so it's not like
That's true.
too utopian. There's always some kind of a threat.
That's true. But I don't know. I actually kind of prefer like Wonderland, complete chaos. Just because But sometimes I read some of the things wrote, like them having no money, like they don't need it. I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
that's true.
all right, Mom, all right, you
Yeah.
know,
That wouldn't work very well. I
yeah,
remember thinking that that would work really well when I was a kid. I was like, I just could go to the store and just get something.
yeah. I mean, I
Then you
guess
grow
maybe
up and
that's what,
realize it's not a good idea.
I guess that's what maybe, that's the reasoning behind it. But I was just like, this feels kind of like strangely political. No, I'm not for it. And whereas Wonderland, it's like that doesn't even come up, so that's why I prefer it. But
Hmm.
anyway, sorry, we're getting off track, even though it's still about Oz. But later books weird.
Yeah.
To sum it up.
They're all weird, but the more they get weirder and weirder the further you go.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely think so. But I haven't finished them all. Someone, people might disagree. Trying to think of what else to say about the movie. The sets are gorgeous. Costumes are
Oh,
gorgeous.
yeah. Especially the witch's castle, or the queen's whatever she is. Her castle is amazing.
Yeah, well, it's actually it's the Palace of the Emerald City. She took it over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually, the Emerald City is gorgeous. I love it. I mean, you mostly
Yeah,
see it,
especially after it's been restored.
yeah, you mostly see it in ruins, but you could tell it was, like a gorgeous place, though.
Hmm.
I almost kind of wish you see more of it. Oh, and then I was just suddenly reminded of the finale scene. Like, you have all these obscure Oz characters in the background.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because I saw things that looks vaguely familiar, and I was wondering, like, there was a frog at one point. I was like, are these all characters from the books, or
Yes.
is it just somebody overusing their imagination and putting in a bunch of random stuff that they thought would be cool?
No, no, those are all characters from the book. It's insane.
Oh, okay.
Off the top of my head, like Button Bright, Polychrome, there's a lot. And a lot of those are like their only appearance ever in an adaptation.
Huh.
I think there's people who are more familiar with the books who have gone through and identified characters.
Okay.
But it's that I feel like Return to Oz is like a passion project, like a love letter to the books.
Mm-hmm.
It's details like that that really endear the movie to me, even
Mm-hmm.
if it is a little weird sometimes and nonsensical. Uh, just like the amount of passion and dedication someone had to have to be like,
Mm-hmm.
let's put all these characters from the books that most people aren't going to recognize, but the nerds will. And and that's what we're making this movie for the nerds, you know. So it's like, oh, another little detail I noticed, which I've never heard anybody else mention this. So, the stone lady who's reading a book in Emerald City, if you remember her.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, when she comes back to life, the pages in her book blow in the wind, and you can see she's reading Land of Oz.
Oh, I did not notice that.
Yeah, specifically, I recognized like the sawhorse illustration. So it's just a lot of little details like that they didn't need to do. They could have just put in like an ordinary textbook, you know, but they did that. So I really like the attention to details like that.
Yeah. Interesting. Does that mean that she was reading the history of the actual land? Although no, it would be like an alternate history
She's
because
reading like real people fan fiction in that universe.
yeah, something
That
like
was
that.
eerily accurate to what did happen. Um, but still, I mean, obviously it's just like an Easter egg, but it's really neat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we haven't talked much about the Gnome King. We
Oh,
mentioned him, but I think as far as like special effects go, he's the best one. Like the animation on him, like transforming into a human, and it
it's
happened over several
wonderful.
scenes, so you almost don't even notice it at first.
Yeah,
And then like he was like over halfway to human. I was like, he's actually becoming human, and I hadn't even noticed it. It was so well done. It's just so subtle and perfect. Like they went
I
from
agree.
claymation to a guy with makeup, and you barely notice. It's so good.
Yeah, it's done, and it just looks good too, right? Like he looks,
Yeah.
even as he's human, as it's a human actor, he still like looks stone in a way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I just love the idea that he's like feeding off of them, becoming ornaments.
I never really even understood that in the book.
Yeah, that didn't happen in the book, and it doesn't make any sense because like
Well, he did turn them into ornaments in the book.
yeah, he did, but he didn't like get more powerful from it, I don't think.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. But that said, I'm here for it. I still, I like it even if it doesn't make sense because it's like, how is he powerful enough to take over the Emerald, take over Oz, but he can't leave
Yeah.
his mountain without grabbing some more souls? I don't know. Like,
Well, plus even after he's defeated, his magic is still working somehow because they're still turning people back with the spell that he was behind.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know how that works.
It's Oz magic, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Look, movie good, okay? Just don't think about it. It's also not really. I don't think it's like really super clear what the relationship between Mombi and the Gnome King is.
It's not exactly clear, but I got the sense that like he sort of hired her to
Yeah,
take care of Ozma. I don't know why exactly, but
but then you gotta
that's what I
ask.
gathered.
But then you gotta ask, why not just turn Ozma into an ornament?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, really. Why? That would have been a whole lot easier than getting a witch to trap her in a mirror where she could eventually escape from.
Yeah, well, that and it would add to his power, right? Supposedly, because
Yeah.
when he makes more ornaments, he gets more power. Uh, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna excuse all of this and say dream logic. Okay, like dreams
Yeah.
don't make sense. Like,
That's kind of what you have to do with a lot of these things.
yeah, that's true. A lot of fantasy stuff, you can't really think about it too much.
Especially Oz.
Yeah, especially Oz. If you think too much about how Oz operates as a society, it just doesn't work.
Uh-huh. Oh, and we're talking about sets. I loved the set where all the ornaments were kept. I thought it looked so cool. It was like some sort of palace room. I just really liked it.
All the like variety of stuff too. Like,
Uh-huh.
it was really cool what they managed to find. Sometimes you just like watch the movie and just like, oh, that's a cool thing, and
Uh-huh.
you
And
wonder where it
I
is
was also
now.
wondering because don't they find like a painting of her friends?
hmm
But it looks like it's ancient. And really, that's another thing. Like the whole Emerald City is in ruins. So how long has passed between when Dorothy was there and now? So is it like do these does the land of Oz operate like Narnia with different timelines happening between Earth and Narnia? Because like I got the sense that maybe only a couple of months had passed between the tornado taking her to Oz
Yeah, it's
and
less than a year.
this story. So I feel like more time had to have passed in Oz than it did on Earth.
hmm Yeah, that's a good question. You know what? I didn't think about it that much, but I think you're right. I think there had to be more time passing because
Mm-hmm.
everything's covered in like cobwebs falling apart. At first,
Yeah.
I excused it as maybe it's a spell that the Gnome King did, but thinking about it, I don't really think that makes sense either because like the Munchkin village is just gone.
Yeah, that's true too. I forgot about that.
Yeah, but
They never
Dorothy's
explained
house
what
is still
happened to the
here.
Munchkins either.
Yeah, it didn't. And that's kind of weird. It's kind of like Emerald City's in ruins, but it's still there. Why are the Munchkins, like, why aren't their houses there? Maybe they just didn't want to build the set. But her
I don't
house is
know.
still there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just gonna chalk it up to it being like Narnia time.
Yeah,
That's about all you can do.
yeah, I think that's all you can do, really. I think in the books, it might be implied that timelines could be different, but I don't know.
Mm. It's been too long since I've read it, so I don't remember how much time had passed.
Oh, we didn't talk about Scarecrow and the Lion and the Tin Windsman.
Yeah, they're not really in there a whole lot, so I kind of forgot about them.
Yeah,
They're
I
there
mean,
at the end.
yeah. Well, I mean, you got Scarecrow.
He's sort of the driving force of the plot because she's trying to find him, but she
Yeah,
doesn't find him until the end.
yeah. But his costume just looks derpy.
That's true, but the illustrations in the books, he usually looks kind of derpy.
True. I really love the faithfulness to the illustrations. So I know that what they were trying to do for the Scarecrow, I just kind of wonder if it could have been done better, but since he wasn't like a major character, they didn't, you know, try too much harder. He also, I felt like he could have moved a little bit better, but whatever.
It's probably one of those things where people are so used to the MGM version that everything else seems off.
To be fair, the MGM Scarecrow was really well done.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to like do something as good as that without replicating it. And the Tin Woodsman is really well done, I think, for being such a minor character.
Yeah.
I like how his eyes can move too, and he looks just like the illustrations.
Yeah. Very, very close to the illustrations. Even down to the legs and arms that look too skinny.
Yeah, yeah. And then Lion,
He is a lion.
he didn't turn
Unlike the
out too
MGM
well though.
version.
Yeah, but he didn't. He
That's
doesn't look
true.
very good. I kind of almost prefer how the MGM version does the Lion compared to this. Like, I'm just like,
I
that's a person on all fours.
I kind of agree, but I do like I do want a version where it's like a real lion. Like I like the idea of it being a real lion. I do like the MGM lion, even though he's not a lion. He's a person in a fluffy costume.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of being a literal lion. And I did like that about Return to Oz. Even if he's not the greatest lion, he's only on screen for like a minute, so it was fine, I guess.
He has a cute little bow in his hair.
That's also book accurate too.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty much almost everything is book accurate, except for like I would say the plot's probably the most altered from the book.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it's very book accurate, and in other ways it's not because they're joining two books together.
Yeah.
And then writing a whole new beginning and end, because the beginning was way darker than anything in the books. Dorothy undergoing psychiatric treatment that includes electroshock therapy. That was not in the books.
Man, I don't know. Monkey decapitation is pretty dark.
That's true.
Or being like, actually, when you think about it, when Dorothy's like held prisoner by the witch, is it's also like really dark. She's there for a while in the book.
Yeah, basically a slave.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty dark for a kid's book, really.
Yeah.
But anyway, trying to think if there's anything else to talk about Return to Oz.
Well, we should probably talk about the end, because I thought the end was the end. It's not supposed to be funny, but it cracked me up.
How so?
I don't know why, but she eventually, she frees Ozma, and they've reunited, but then she has to say goodbye. She's got to go home. She wakes up next to the river, so it's basically, was it a dream? Was it not a dream? Did it actually happen? But then she's found by Toto, Uncle Henry, and Aunt Em. And at first I was like, why are they there? Because she's supposed to be off by herself in this hospital. But then they reveal that the hospital was hit by lightning and burned to the ground. And for some reason, I just started laughing. I was like, what?
It is a pretty big coincidence.
And then they reveal that everyone was rescued, except for the doctor, who ran back to rescue his machines.
And then you got like the nurse in the jail carriage.
I was confused by that, because I thought it looked like Mombi's third head.
No,
instead of,
it's the original head.
because, okay, I was confused because Mombi had three heads, or well, she had like over 30, but she had three that she wore throughout the film,
Mm.
and I think the nurse was head number two.
No, the nurse is the original head.
Okay. Well, I thought that the one that was in the cage was the one that was not the nurse, and then I was confused. But maybe I just saw it wrong. I don't know.
The thing that I find confusing about the nurse in the jail carriage, I mean, I think I've figured it out, is that it's implied that when they rescued everybody, they found out about the patients and stuck, like, trapped in the basement, and she's being jailed
Oh.
for crimes, but they never say it. So, like,
Yeah, that's true. There was a lot of weird stuff happening in that hospital we kind of didn't talk about.
yeah, yeah. So it's just kind of like, I get you're just supposed to connect the dots when she sees her in the carriage, and I could see that being confusing to people. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, the whole hospital thing, I don't know how these people got away with this. I mean, people get away with stuff all the time, but like the hospital just seemed to be some sort of sick experiment.
yeah,
Like they
I mean,
basically treated her like a prisoner.
sadly, that wasn't far off from the truth. Like, even up till, like, I think the 70s, there was a journalist who, like, went undercover as a mental patient,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
conditions were atrocious.
That is true. I
Yeah,
guess maybe this is more accurate than I would like to believe.
unfortunately, it probably is.
Yeah, but there was like when the whole time she was in the hospital, you just heard things, and like at certain points there were people screaming, and like
Uh,
I could see why people said that this movie terrified them as children.
look, it just makes children stronger, okay? That kid I showed, she turned out fine.
Well, she apparently liked it because she wanted to watch the scary Oz.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, the hospital is definitely kind of a messed up situation.
Hmm.
And then, do you think it's kind of weird, like at the end when she sees Ozma in her bedroom mirror, which, by the way, her bedroom's very cute, and then she calls for Aunt Em, and Ozma's like, "No, you shouldn't have," and so she tilts the mirror up, but you see Ozma disappear before she tilts the mirror up because probably they couldn't like
Uh-huh.
track the effect, right? And
Yeah.
it's kind of like, I don't know, I just found that weird.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I found weird is like, why not let Aunt Em know that you're not crazy? Like, why does this have to be a secret?
Because Ozma
Like,
says so. She's princess. We gotta listen to her.
okay.
Well, she could like deny Dorothy to go back to Oz.
Oh, yeah, well, you don't want that.
Yeah, because Oz has been so great for Dorothy. Um, I mean, I'm kidding. Obviously, there are good things about Oz even in this one, but it is kind of like, why would you want to go back there?
Yeah, that's kind of true. This version of Oz is kind of traumatic.
Yeah, especially, and we haven't even seen, their version of the first book. But
Yeah.
apparently, I'm imagining it had monkey decapitations. Okay, so, but she can't
I would
sleep.
bet so.
She can't sleep for a reason. So,
Yeah, she just keeps imagining those poor monkeys.
oh man,
Now I'm just imagining that cute, cartoony looking Tin Woodsman violently attacking monkeys with a big smile on his face.
oh man, I would actually love to see that. And Dorothy's just in the background, like, this is fine. I'm not traumatized. It's okay.
Well, I suppose we probably could wrap this up.
All right. I highly recommend watching this if anybody listening hasn't.
Yeah. If you're a fan of Oz or 80s fantasy movies,
Or
this is definitely
traumatizing
one you need
children's
to...
content.
That too. Any of those. This is definitely one you don't want to miss.
Or if you're a fan of puppetry or stop motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in here.
Yeah.
And it's all really well done.
It really is. All right. Yeah, I think that covers all the bases of who would be interested in this.
Yeah. Well, until next time, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Yes, Phantomwise on YouTube. Not that I upload I upload anything there. And then I was Still She Haunts Me Phantomwise on Tumblr with hyphens in the middle. And that's it.
Okay. I'll have that linked below.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun to talk about one of my favorite films.
Yeah, it was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. I guess I was kind of expecting something kind of cheesy and I don't know. I wasn't expecting it to be like good. I was pleasantly surprised. Okay, well, I guess until next time.
Till next time, thank you for having me.
Yep, thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Disney Movie Marathon. If you like what you've heard, make sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform or to our YouTube channel. Make sure to follow my co-hosts as well. Any relevant links will be in the description for easy access. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.